We get a lot of people will say a lot of stuff about the things that we have said on this program. But I have not suggested this course for this president before, even though I personally have had reason to call for it. I knew that that nobody cared. But this time, a different course has to be set. I want you to understand that if you decide, you have to decide which side you're on now. You have to decide, because if you engage on this particular case, this is going to be very bad. The Benghazi thing and the IRS scandal are both very, very bad. And if they get away with it, it will not go well for you. It will not go well for us. Because this is what this involves. With Benghazi, the lies are overwhelming. If you just listen and look at what this president, the White House, and the State Department have said about Benghazi, the lies are convincing, they're said with conviction, and they are all overwhelming. Here they are.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
Based on the best information we have to date, what our assessment is as of the present is in fact what it began spontaneously in Benghazi as a reaction to what had transpired some hours earlier in Cairo, where, of course, as you know, there was a violent protest outside of our embassy sparked by this hateful video.
This is a fairly volatile situation, and it is in response not to United States policy, not to obviously the administration, not to the American people. It is in response to a video.
To us, to me personally, this video is disgusting and reprehensible.
This is at the funeral.
You do not agree with him that this was something that had been plotted out several months ago?
We do not have information at present that leads us to conclude that this was premeditated or pre-planned.
Two senior U.S. officials confirmed to Fox that the U.S. government, the Obama administration, knew within 24 hours of this attack in Benghazi that terrorism was the cause.
And they lied about it for weeks.
Okay, so here you have. Now you have to ask yourself, the press will tell you at this point they were only covering for an election. I contend that is absolutely untrue. I contend, as I have from the beginning, this is about weapons smuggling to Syria. That is quite a serious charge. That is what I have said from the beginning. Geraldo now has come out with a statement on Friday saying he has top-level sources that say this is about gun running to Syria. Fox News should either deny and distance themselves from that statement, or they should confirm and run with that story. Because that is, I believe, what this story is about. We have to know, why did they cover? Why did they try to distance this president from this? Why did they keep him supposedly out of the loop entirely all night long? Something very, very bad and dangerous is at the center of Benghazi. They lied about it at the White House. They lied about it at the State Department. They accused Americans' freedom of speech. They said that an American who now sits in prison, they said that an American was responsible for this on this videotape, making some videotape, when they knew that was absolutely false. There was no indication that it was a videotape at all. They left people to die. They left people to die. I want you to try to imagine being on the roof of a building, which the Blaze reported right after Benghazi, I want you to realize and try to imagine the agent that was up on the roof calling for help, repeatedly calling for help, knowing that help was accessible, knowing that we had planes in the area, knowing that we had drones in the air, knowing that others were watching or listening to this in Washington, and then being told, you're on your own. There's no help coming. Imagine that SEAL member. Imagine that member of Special Forces who has fought his whole life. Imagine Ambassador Stevens, from all good sources. Everybody says he was a good, decent man. Imagine how he must have felt when the team was told to leave the embassy and to leave him behind. Imagine what the Special Forces felt like when they just commandeered a plane. They were in Tripoli, and they just took a plane and went themselves. Imagine what they felt like when they were told, stand down. That's what Benghazi is about. The IRS scandal. They say it was on Friday, they said it was low level. Now the Washington Post is saying that it is high level sources at the IRS. They targeted the 9/12 Project. They targeted the Tea Party patriots. They targeted Jewish organizations. They asked them for their donor list. They asked them for things they had no right to ask them for, and then threatened them. They asked the Jewish organization to explain their religious belief concerning Israel. They targeted those who were teaching constitutional principles. But that's the IRS scandal. But I'd like to add to this, and again, with full understanding that the media will pay no attention because they don't consider me one of theirs. I'm an outsider. So whatever happens to me or the Blaze, they don't care. In fact, they would probably celebrate. Good. But today it is me. And if you don't stand for me, who will stand for you? As we told you when we were at Fox, on a daily basis, we were targeted by Media Matters, Van Jones, Jim Wallace, and it was a coordinated effort. It was a coordinated effort by SEIU and the AFL-CIO. We can show you the efforts. Now, just because the AFL-CIO, SEIU, Van Jones, and Jim Wallace all met at the White House on a regular basis, that's the only connection I have to the President of the United States. But boy, doesn't that seem odd that they all directed a campaign to smear, to destroy my credibility, to put me out of business, to boycott my advertisers? Isn't that an interesting thing? Never been done before by the president's office or anyone who works for the president until me. No one cared. When you look at the IRS, know that what happened there happened to us as well. And it will happen to other members of the media. If you decide to go after this White House, really go after, they will pressure you. And if you don't, you know it already because you know in the hallways what has been said. You know how they destroy anyone who stands against. You know in your own media organizations, you know, because you know, at least in 2 of the networks, you know that you have very seasoned senior reporters who tried to open up the Libya case, tried to open up the Benghazi case, and you know what happened to them. You know also what happened to their stories. Now, the media is the third part of this. The media is absolutely complicit. When I first joined the media at CNN, I went in saying there's no conspiracy, and I still don't believe there's a conspiracy. Nobody's calling each other. They all have groupthink. However, on this one, there is an awful lot of shady business that goes on. There are meetings. There are implied meanings. There are out-and-out threats, and I know. And so does everybody in the media. And if you don't, you're blind. You're blind and you're deaf, and you're purposely blind and deaf. I have not suggested that anything has been raised to the level of impeachment. While everybody was calling for impeachment over the birth certificate or everything else, the guy who everyone calls a conspiracy theorist said the birth certificate stuff is nonsense. While everybody was trying to say, oh, Muslim, he's a Muslim, the guy the White House is accused of being a conspiracy theorist said, that's nonsense. There's documentation on this. I believe it is time for the American people to demand that a special counsel is appointed. But I believe for the first time in American history, we should also demand that there is citizen oversight, that there is somebody not connected to either of the two parties that also has some oversight, because the big government stooges will cover for themselves. They will help each other because the State Department is full of snakes. So is the White House, so is Congress. Deals will be made. It is time that the American people demand that this security system that has been aimed directly at the American people, the White House and the government, we have the audio, we'll play it for you, they have already admitted that everything, all electronic transmissions are recorded. It's time that we stop having investigations and we just start listening to the phone calls that you have recorded on the government officials. And if you don't have those recorded, if you don't know what they have text messaged each other, if you don't know all of the phone calls that they've made, well then why? Are you not recording theirs, but you're recording ours? You see, the White House also admitted that they were looking and listening to members of the press. That happened when we were at Fox. They admitted to targeting of members of press and listening to them, eavesdropping on them. But nobody seemed to pay attention. Now, why would you eavesdrop on people like me, but not on the members of Congress? Gee, you would think that would be important if all electronic information was recorded. We should stop with the investigation and we should demand that this state apparatus for our security is turned on itself. And it is actually used for our security. And we find out who was involved and what the phone conversations were in all electronic transmissions. It is time to appoint a special counsel to explore impeachment of this president.